Hello there, my name is Dr. Saleem Javed and we are talking about the beginning of French cinema. We have talked about Georges Méliès, we have talked about Pathé, we have talked about Georges Méliès and the relationship, his relationship with Pathé, we talked about Ferdinand Zika, and we talked about Max Linder, why he is important. Now let's talk about Louis Feuillade and the rise of Gaumont. Now, Gaumont is, as the spelling is Gaumont, but it's called Gaumont. So, you really have to understand when we talk about the beginning of French cinema, when we talk about the importance of French cinema, very few important names are there that I have just took, and one of them is, three top names is Georges Méliès, beginning of cinema, Georges Méliès, Pathé and Gaumont. Obviously, Ferdinand Zika is there, obviously Max Linder is there, no doubt about it, but these are the three stars, three prominent stars of early cinema. So, we have talked about at length about Georges Méliès, we talked about Pathé. Now, let's talk exclusively about Gaumont. Now, if you can see on your screen, Pathé's sole formidable competitor on the continent was the French company Gaumont Pictures, established by the engineer and inventor Leo Gaumont in 1898. So, as early as cinema itself. Gaumont posed minimal competition. Please understand this. Gaumont posed minimal competition to Pathé in the initial decade of the last century, which means 1900 to 1910. However, primarily because of the efforts of a single director, Louis Feuillade. Yes, Feuillade नहीं है ये, Louis Feuillade. It managed to dominate French cinema from 1913 until 1920. You know, this is almost the beginning of the First World War and the end of the end of the First World War, from 1914 to 1919. Now, this Louis Feuillade, that's the danger when you see so many films. There is where you have a lot of references in your mind, and sometimes it really becomes difficult. And top of that, it's a French name. So Louis Feuillade. Okay, so by mistake if I say Feuillade, so don't worry, it's Feuillade. Okay, so look at the trajectory. It's Pathé, and then it's Gaumont, and Gaumont as a company did not pose any threat, to Pathé in the beginning of the first decade of the last century. How interesting it is, in the beginning of the first decade of the last century. So, from 1900 to 1910 we are talking about. Now, but he was able to roll up, or he was able to roll up his sleeves against Pathé because of one director called Louis Feuillade. Now, let's talk about this guy. Now, initially a playwright for Pathé. Now, look at this, how interesting it is, So, it is said in the business that along with your projects, your people are as important as your project. So, you can see that it is not a new thing in the world of business. This is how it is happening on your screen. Initially a playwright for Pathé, Feuillade commenced his career at Gaumont in 1906, directing comedic shorts and chase films, that we talked about, chase films in the style of Zika. Look how interesting it is. He produced other narrative films in subsequent years. So, we are talking about a person who started with Pathé, came with Gaumont, took the style of Zika, who was part of Pathé, and put Gaumont company at top or at par with Pathé itself. So it is said in the world of business that as you take care about your projects, take care about your people also, because he was a playwright initially with Pathé, and he initially opted the style of Zika, who was with Pathé, but he was working with Gaumont. Now, he ultimately established his reputation with the serial detective picture Phantomos, or Master of Terror, filmed in 5 episodes. What I talked, if you remember what I talked about Max Linder, that is 100% true for that is 100% true for Fulad also. Now, he made a detective serial picture. Obviously, serial was not there. Please understand, I am talking about first decade of the last century. So, I am talking about 1900 and 1910. So, 1905, 1906 I am talking about. Now, he made a serial detective picture, Phantom, if you remember Phantom, you know, Phantom cartoon used to be there when I was young. Phantom series was there. I mean, a lot of comic heroes have become mainstream heroes, but I have not. It is not that films were not made by using Phantom books. They were made, but Phantom never became so popular. So, Phantomos or Master of Terror, filmed in 5 episodes, each comprising 4 to 6 segments between 1913 to 1914. It is, as you know, 1914 is when the World War started. So, you really have to understand that this guy called Louis Fulad is basically making serial detective pictures. When he is making, he is making around 1913, 1914, and Phantomos or Phantomos, you know, in French, Phantomos. This is how it is, taken. Everybody was making films, please understand. So, he was making serial detective pictures. So, he was making OTT style films, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. He was doing it, you know. So, how interesting it is. Now, Victorian Gesture initially created Phantom style in Nick Carter in 1908. Now, very interestingly, look at these pictures on your screen. So, Nick Carter is on one hand and Phantomos is on another hand. So, Nick Carter was created in year 1908 and Phantomos was 1913 and 1914. So, that style was taken. So, if you can see, you will see, you know, when you see the poster of Nick Carter on your screen, then you realize that it is like almost super action film. You know, both the characters, protagonist and antagonist, on top of a car, they both are in the they both are in the air and they are fighting. And Phantom, you know, in English it's called Phantom, and later on Phantom became a very interesting character in 1980s and in 1980s, because I read a lot of Phantom books in my childhood. So, Phantomos. So, the cinema genre. So, for the first time we are talking about genre here, very interestingly. For the first time we are talking about genre. The cinema genre debuted with Victorian Jesser, a former sculptor directing for Gaumont. So, he was with Gaumont in 1908 Nick Carter series. Louis Fulad infused the medium with aesthetic beauty and visual poetry, elevating his serials to the realm of art. This is something very, very interesting. So, Nick Carter, and then we are talking about Fulad, and one is 1908 Nick Carter, and then we are talking about Phantomos, which is 1913 and 1914, and Victorian Jesser made this Nick Carter. Now look at this screen. Look at this image on your screen. Such a, I mean, you think as if it is a image from 1950s or 1940s or 1930s from film noir. Film noir use this sort of images. So the remarkable adventure of Phantomas, Master of Terror, and his antagonist are exquisitively captured on location in the street, residence, sewage, outskirts of pre-war Paris, presenting a uniquely lyrical fusion of naturalism and fantasy. It's like uh, it's not in studio, it is there on location, exactly as if you are watching a scene from film noir. It is so powerful, image is so powerful. Now, so this is what it is. Now let's talk about Louis Feuillade exclusively. Louis Feuillade additional detective serials, the 10 episode La Vampire, the 12 episode of Judex, La Nouvelle Mission d'Aujourd'hui, Tin Min, and Barbaras all exhibit the identical fusion of mystery and the mundane reality. Now look at these what he was doing in 1915, 16, 1916, 1917, 1919, and their atmospheric elegance exerted a direct and enduring impact on French cinema, influencing the work of Jean Doran, Abel Gance, Jacques Fed, and Rene Clair. You don't see it as only, if I say serial detective picture. What he was doing was of such importance that people like Rene Clair, Jean, Abel, Jacques, they were influenced by such body of work. And very interestingly, if you see this on your screen, the vampire in English, or La Vampires, you know, or these are the visuals from the vampire or Judex. Then you have Timmin, then you have Barbaras, and interestingly, all these films, if you see, then you realize that they were not merely detective serial films. They were woven. They were woven with unique lyrical fusion of naturalism and fantasy. This is something one must understand, that that is what, like I always say it about BBC series of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes has, who in the world does not want to play Sherlock Holmes when it comes to and time and again people have been making Sherlock Holmes, and this recent Sherlock Holmes which was made by Cumberbatch was there, and before this BBC Sherlock Holmes, when you see the last Sherlock Holmes, I mean it is like the James Bond. Every James Bond is unique in himself, but whosoever is the new James Bond tries his, I mean, till now it is his. There is a possibility of her best also. I don't know when that will happen, but so they gave it a glimpse in the last film of James Bond, and where she asked to restore the status of 007 of James Bond. So, No Time to Die, I think, was the last film, if I'm not mistaken. So, so when you come for serials, especially for televisions, and especially which are coming from Hollywood, I think Louis. Please understand when I say Louis, the spelling is L-O-U-I. Yes, Louis. But in French it's called Louis. Louis Fioulard. So look at his, what he was doing in 1915, 16, in 16, in 17, in 19, and the war is going on. Please understand, and Pathé is going down. Gaumont is able to survive because of Louis Fioulard only, and because of these serials like the 10-episode La Vampire, 12-episode Judex, La Nouvelle Maison de Judex, and the Minhin and the Barbaras, and the fusion of mystery and mundane reality. Now, I asked you to see these images on your screen of all the programs that all the films, serial-like films he made, Love Empire. These are the images of that. Then Judix is there. Then the House of Judix is there. Tim Min is also there, and then Barbaras is also there. And look at this particular image where he is hanging from a railing. I mean, when I saw this film, what was the name of that film? James Bond, Daniel Craig's the first Casino Royale. When I saw it for the first time, I said, "Oh God, it's the same scene in Casino Royale also." Now, sometimes I used to wonder when I started watching films. I used to wonder how are they able to think like this. Then I realized that I have not seen what they have seen. Then they take a leap of faith from there, and then they create the magic that we think is new today. But when I saw this first poster of Barbaras, then I realized, okay, Casino Royale is, and that was the opening sequence, action sequence of the film when Daniel Craig is introduced, and I was like, oh yes, it's from here. So that's how it happens. I always say that it's a couplet which I always say in Hindi कि यूं तो दुनिया में कोई बात नहीं यूं तो दुनिया में कोई बात नहीं अंदाज़े बयां रंग बदल देता है. So when I see this, I see them as new films. When I started, when I saw Casino Royale, I said, "Oh God, how are they able to imagine such a action sequence? Why we are not able to imagine?" Yes, we are not able to imagine because we have not seen the work which has been done. Not in Hindi, not even in Hindi cinema. I mean, I'm talking about right now the beginning of French cinema, or rather the beginning of early French cinema, and I have not seen many films which are part of early Hindi cinema. Uh, Maximum what I have seen, though they say it is Raja Harishchandra, but I wonder it was, the film which is uploaded on YouTube is not made by Raja Harishchandra. It is, I think, made by this guy, Ardeshir Irani also made that film. So I'm not very sure that the film which is uploaded on YouTube, called Raja Harishchandra, or as the first film of Indian film industry, it is made by Dada Saab Phalke. I think that version, I sometimes doubt if it is that version. So when we have not seen our own films, how can we say that we are, I mean, new is, when everybody says that I want to see something new, I said fine, but how do you define new? New is something that if you have seen so many things, then it becomes old for you. Then anything which is different from that old is new to you. But not that today, if somebody says that Sholay is an old film, but you have not seen Sholay, then it is a new film for you. Okay, doesn't matter when it was made. So look at this example of Barbaras where he is hanging from the railing. I mean, obviously it is a railing which is, it's a crane. It's part of the crane, which is like when high rise building are made. So this particular crane is used, and in this film, Casino Royale, this particular scene was the opening action sequence. Okay, Now, let's move further, otherwise I'll be talking about a lot of other things also. Nevertheless, Feuillade adhered to a conservative approach to cinematic structure and continuously dismissed Griffith's serial order image or montage in favor of intricately created tableau in depth. Very hard statement to make, but such is the case that he dismissed Griffith's serial ordered images or montage. This is something very daring sort of an act, because montage, when I'll be talking about D.W. Griffith, then you will understand what montage is, why montage became so. The entire American film industry is dependent. I mean, initially one of if Russian cinema was all about Soviet montage, montage was developed simultaneously, and they have two distinct style of montages. So rather than opting for montage, he opted for tableau. Tableau mentality, I always say when I talked about D.W. Griffith. Now, what I want you to understand is, uh, I can talk about these at length, but I really want you to uh, see some pictures actually. Uh, the effect of phantomos, as you can see on your screen. What was the effect? Look at these images. Okay, keep looking these images, and I read some text for you. Keep this image in your mind, phantomos, but on screen keep watching these images, and just look at what I am saying. The success of Feuillade serial resulted in global acceptance of the format Phantomos that I am talking about, and Phantomos is considered as the progenitor of American Pearl of Pollen series, Britain's Britain's Ultus, Germany's Homunculus, and Italy's Tigris, all of which were widely received in their time. So if you have this image, Phantomos, now these four say called serial-like images, okay, serial-like pictures, these four were, they took inspiration from Phantomos only. And what are these? These are the adaptation of Phantomos in America, adaptation of Phantomos in Britain, adaptation of Phantomos in Germany, adoption of Phantomos in Italy. How interesting is this? Phantomos is there, and these are the four programs, four films, four serial detectives films took inspiration from Phantomos, and they were as popular as Phantomos in their respective countries, be that America, Britain, Italy, or Germany. How interesting it is. Now, in 1910, around 60 to 70% of all imported pictures in the West originated from French studios, indicating that France's supremacy in global cinema was nearly as comprehensive as that of Hollywood would later become. At the onset of the war, France experienced a significant decline in their market, while Hollywood production rate were escalating nearly every month. The Gaumont studio commenced the talents not only of Feuillade but also of his prodigy Jean Durand, whose comedy serial On Smee, Calino and Zigoto were made between 1907 and 1914 and influenced the work of both Mark Sennett and René Clair. Now look at these images on your screen. One is the father of animation, the man who is drawing, and the other is the world's first woman director. Her name was Alice Guy Black. She was the first woman director, and her film was The Life of Christ, 1906. Life of Christ, I'll be talking about Life of Christ also. And her fan of Tulip or Fafala Tulip, and the cartoonist Emily Cole. Emily Cole is called the father of animation, and they were all associated with each other. Such is the grandeur of French cinema, and such is the impact of early French cinema in filmmaking history. Thank you very much.